All right. So we're going to be doing training on external users training for ProLink through Proquorum, which is, we have a, I'm going to start by just reminding everybody, if you haven't been already, the Division of Credit Assurance within the Department of Housing and Community Development has a website, which we've been working on building out, particularly as ProLink and Proquorum have come into usage. You may hear me reference ProLink from time to time. That's an internal asset management system that interfaces with Proquorum. Proquorum is the external portal that allows us to communicate and interact with our different stakeholders at the project level, from owners, managers, and anyone else that the owners and managers want to provide access to. So on this new page, we've got resources for different segments of our business that we do in DCA. I think the vast majority of folks here are going to be multifamily users. We may have a few business folks on. There will be some additional kind of ProLink training or Proquorum trainings for business users as we continue to build that out. But by and large, these types of requests, submissions, and the way that you process that is going to be the same for both. We are not going to be, wait a minute. It's going to tell me when I'm messing up here. I was not sharing. Am I sharing can everyone see the website?
No, we're seeing the presentation.
Okay, apologies.
Now we're seeing the website.
All right, there we go. Yeah, so here's the Division of Credit Assurance website. And like I said, we've got it broken down, but multifamily lending site will take you to both kind of normal things that you might have found previously on the DHCD site, the general site forms directory. We've moved over here, compliance forms, documents that are issued for public comment, compliance documents, and for the purposes of this, we have asset management requests and forms related to specific types of asset management requests. So right here on the guidance is where you will be able to find most of the information that I'm referencing here today, including the instructions, which break down, that's really what I'm going to be going through today, as well as links to our submissions matrix for common types of standard servicing transactions and major transactions, which I'll talk about a little bit more here in a second. So let's get right into it. I'm Joey Pulver. I'm the director of the Division of Credit Assurance, and I've hopefully met many of you through my work with the multifamily team and business teams. Today, the focus of the training is for third-party users, property owners, borrowers, guarantors, management companies, asset managers, and like I said, there may be some third-party users like accountants and auditors that you want or need to provide access to in order to upload documents or to communicate with the property. So the scope of this is going to be a general overview on the submission of asset management requests and how the processing will work. I may use some specific types of requests for examples, but it's really not meant to be like, this isn't a training on reserve for replacement requests. We'll have one of those in the near future, and we'll be continuing to roll out different trainings related to different types of requests over the course of the year. Yeah, and just to be clear, this is not, this is for Division of Credit Assurance asset management. This doesn't relate to CDA underwriting. They have their own kind of work centers and their processes for development deals. So this is not meant to cover that. So we're going to walk through, I already showed you the DCA website and where you can get the instructions and forms. On that same site, there are links that are pretty easily found on the left-hand side for how to access a Proquorum Work Center, and just general training is already on there that was done by our team on accessing Proquorum and utilizing Proquorum. we're going to talk a little bit about how to upload the required documents, and then also how to respond to requests and tasks that get issued related to your request. So yeah, please hold any questions to the end. If you want to submit them in the chat, that would be great. Or you can just hold them, and I may pause at times for questions as well. So again, I showed you the website. This is where these sections, actually, I'm going to pause for a second. Can everyone see, or is this too small?
It's a little too small.
All right. So how will we address that? I don't know that I'm actually going to be able to address that, given it's a PowerPoint presentation. I know you can zoom in on your screen by clicking. I think there's a button at the bottom right usually. Mine's not showing because I'm sharing. But also this will be recorded online, so you can take screenshots or zoom in or go back to it. But if anybody on our team has any suggestions on how I can make this bigger, let me know. But otherwise, I'm just going to get into it. Let me try that, Jennifer. I'm sharing my screen and it's not.
She's referring to the rest of us. You're not going to be able to.
Great. Okay. All right. Well,
There's
then
a plus sign on that screen. Does that enlarge it?
This here?
Yes.
No, that's just for the side window.
Okay.
All right.
So there are the 3 ellipses next to the phone button that you can hang up at. So there's the 3 ellipses to the left of that. If you select that, you can select adjust view and then select spotlight. And that will take the view away of all of the attendees, and you'll just see what's being presented. And then once the presentation is over, or once you're not able to see that, then you can just go ahead and go back to tiled or automatic dynamic.
Oh, are you saying for third parties or for me?
For third parties, for anyone that's attending. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll jump in now because I don't want to spend too much time on that. Especially, it doesn't sound like I'm going to be able to zoom in any further on my screen. So, all right. So yeah. So I showed you the website. This is just highlighting those sections where you can find both instructions for how to submit the request within the Proquorum folder, as well as the specific documents and information that should be pulled before submitting the request, so you have a complete submission. All right, so you're going to hear me reference throughout here, and you'll see that the documents on our website break things down into standard servicing requests and major transaction requests. So those are general categories that we use for identifying the type of request. So when you're thinking of a standard servicing request, these are requests that are expected as part of the process. So reserve for replacement requests is a good example. Other types of requests that don't require, maybe like an insurance change at some point, or if your project is changing its tenant services plan, or other things like that, that are really just more of a submission and can be a pretty quick review. Whereas we've got major transaction requests, which are really changes to the underlying deal structure in some way. That might be a subordination request, a refinance, an ownership transfer, or things like that generally require a lot more kind of detailed underwriting. And so we've split those up into how we process those, and just based on the amount of work and information and analysis that needs to go into those types of requests. And so there are 2 different sheets that are available that'll help you identify what documents need to be pulled in order to initiate the request. So the goal is to have all of those documents prepared and ready for submission, submit them all at one time, and that would then initiate an internal, so here's just a list of some of the standard servicing requests, as well as major transaction requests. Okay, so the specific type of request. We have a handful of requests like reserve for replacements, management changes, and rent increases, where we have forms that need to be used in connection with those requests. Those will be kept and maintained on the website. So if you have a request that doesn't have any standardized forms, you just want to go through the regular instructions for submission, but also check to make sure if there is a specific form that needs to be used in connection with a certain type of request, that you see if it's there on the website. So getting into how the process starts. So hopefully most of you are familiar with Procorum already. If you're not, you can watch the training on that and make sure that you get a login ID for you and multiple people who need access through your organization to each of your projects. That's how all communications will take place between projects and DCA going forward, related to things like inspections and management, or any kind of asset management requests, inspections, scheduling, audits, all the stuff that we normally do. So once you've logged in, you should see, unless you're in another state as well, you probably only see the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development account. If you were in another state, you may see, you might see Wisconsin on there if you have a project in Wisconsin. Once you get in there, you will see a list of all of your projects. And then once you select the specific project that you're working in, you will see this. There are 4 folders that make up the standard folder structure for a project. We have a project onboarding folder, routine project monitoring, and then these 2, which are the focus of this, this training, which is standard requests and non-standard requests. Standard being the SSRs, non-standard being the major transaction requests. So what you'll notice, if you click into the folder 03 here, the standard requests, it further breaks down by the specific types of standard requests that we have commonly seen, and so decided that they deserve to have their own standardized folder. And the reserves folder actually goes down a little further and breaks down, and if you're talking about a reserve for replacement, an operating reserve, or some other reserve, and then it's also got escrows and impounds folders. All of the rest of them, I believe, do not have subfolders. Those are just a single. So what you would do is, if you wanted to go to a, so for instance, if you had a standard servicing request, you would click in folder 03, and then you would find, is it an insurance change? Was there some sort of insurable loss and you need to provide notice and request approval for a claim or a claim check payment? Are you trying to do a management change? You would then click into that folder. You'll end up at a place where there really should be no more folders to click into once you're in the right place. And that's where you will upload. As you'll see here, there's a button at the top right of each folder, and that green button will allow you to upload files. And that's where you will, once you have a complete submission package, you will click that button and it will prompt you, which you probably can't see very well here, but it'll prompt you to drag and drop or choose files to add to that Procorum Work Center folder. There's also, I don't know how well you can see it. Yeah, here we go. There's also a section at the bottom for a description and comment. So if you have a request, those are in particular, the description, you can title what it is that you're uploading. If you have a comment, that would be something that really is more about, if you've got a request and it's missing some of the required information, or you have a document that doesn't look like it really should. It's a little bit non-standard, and you want to explain that to the reviewer. So when they look at it, they don't just immediately go, well, this isn't the right document, I'm sending this back. That's the place for you to provide explanations on any supporting documents in your request. You could also submit with any request a separate document explaining any kind of discrepancies or things that you want the reviewer to know when they're doing their initial review for a complete package. We do not have any standard naming conventions on, I believe, any of our requests right now, but I would just say it's generally helpful as different items are uploaded that they be identified by what it is that you're uploading. So I provided a couple of examples here. So the reserve for requests, some of you may be familiar with. There's a request form which has different sheets that need to be completed, as well as an itemized list of each of the items that is being requested. So what I would say there, in order to kind of streamline the review process and prevent errors and people not seeing what you thought you were uploading, is try to identify things by, if it's in item 1 and you're submitting the invoice, identify the invoice as item 1 that's being uploaded, versus an estimate or something else that might be required. Same thing with some of the more the major transaction requests that require a lot of documentation, a lot of different documentation. Identifying them by name that ties out to the specific item on those matrices will help with the review and help us process them quicker and get back to you with any kind of follow-up or things that we need to complete our initial submission review and move forward to the next phase of analysis and processing the request. There are going to be certain kinds of forms that will be required, and it goes back to our what I previously talked about on the website, to check the request and if there's any required forms that need to be used. Our new system utilizes something called Smart Docs and Smart Sheets, which are Word documents or Excel documents, which have formatting built into them that allows for the processing of the information and transfer of the information in the sheet. We already know certain documents that are going to be shared soon and uploaded soon are reserved for replacement request forms, are done through Smart Documents and Smart Sheets. The upcoming audits, the financial statements that go along with the audits, the work papers, is a form of Smart Sheet that has to be utilized. Otherwise, it won't work and we'll have to send it back. So those are the cases where you really need to utilize the existing forms, and we are going to lock those so that changes can't be made to areas that will mess up the formatting. But that's why you have to use the correct forms. Otherwise, we won't be able to get the data into our system. Okay, so following the submission, it will notify all of the Work Center members that something has been uploaded. So for those of you who haven't been actively involved in the Work Centers, they will have members that will include maybe folks from the ownership team, folks from the owner's asset management team, the property management team, maybe the auditor or accountant, as well as your PM and your PA and others in the department, depending on what the project is, who will be members of the Work Center. So when things are uploaded, it will notify them via an email, and that notify everybody who's a member of the Work Center. And that's also how tasks and assignments will be done through the Work Center, which will also send a notification. It'll send reminder notifications. So once the request comes in, the DCA Asset Manager will go in, they'll look at all the documents, and they will create a request folder specifically for that transaction or that asset management request that you've created, and populate all the documents into that folder. Once that's done, all additional submissions and communications will be done through that specific folder relating to your request, whether it be a it's so for instance, if I was a property manager and I submitted a limited partnership transfer request, I would just upload all of the documents for that submission into go back here, into this folder, the 04 non-standard requests. I would upload all of them in there. The DCA asset manager will go in, they'll create a folder specifically for that LP transfer request as the date of the submission and move the documents into there. They will then undertake a review of the submission to make sure that it has all of the required information needed to start the request. And if not, we'll send a response via a post or a assignment, a task through the work center, and we'll assign to the submitting party. We'll assign the list of the things that need to be done to correct the submission and have a complete submission so the review can start. Once they've reviewed it and determined that there is a complete submission, they will also notify you. I'll get to that in a little bit later. Okay, so like I said, you will receive, this is the kind of email you will receive through Procorum. This is a that's a screenshot from an email. And you can see things like, so it's titled Submit Payment Information. This is just an example. It'll have a due date. It'll have a description if there's a list of specific payment information that needs to be submitted. So for instance, an RFR, invoice to item 3 missing, please upload. Estimate for item 6 missing, please upload. Those will be sent out in a task along with a deadline, which will generally not be less than 2 weeks. So we'll set it at 2 weeks. The ball's in your court to correct the submission. If you submit it sooner, that's fine. That'll trigger a notification to the DCA asset manager, who will then be able to review what you've submitted. Move on to the next one. Okay. So tasks will be used to will be saved in the user's task list. So as a Procorum user, you'll get that email, but you will also have a tasks list that's available to you when you log into Procorum, both at a global tasks list, so you can see all your tasks, as well as your tasks on a specific project. So if a task was assigned on this project, you could click the email link and it'll take you right here. Or you could just log into Procorum if that's part of your workflow. Is every morning maybe you log in and just check if I have any tasks or anything like that. So there's different ways to kind of monitor what tasks are outstanding. And like I said, there will be a task deadline, reminder email, and then if not corrected by that time, the asset manager or a explanation as to, all right, well, we're working on it, we'll have it submitted. The asset manager could extend the deadline to submit the information, or if it looks like it's just not going to be completed, we'll send a notification saying, if this isn't done within 2 weeks, we're going to go ahead and close this request. And that wouldn't necessarily limit you from submitting a request again in the future, but it'll kind of start the process over. Okay. Just a little heads up. So when you upload things into the Procorum Work Center, so for instance, if you submitted something called item1.estimate.pdf, that's the exact name, it will upload that document in that way into the Procorum Work Center. If you were to then go in, update that document on your machine, and resubmit a document that is titled item1.estimate.pdf into that same folder, you won't have 2 documents with the same name. It will create a history. So you see this here was the first one that was uploaded. This one, same name, was uploaded. So once you click on the item, you'll see a version history, as well as comments and any tasks assigned to it. So if you want to update something, that's fine. If you want to leave it the same name, that's fine. We'll have a version history and be able to see the most recent version that you've uploaded. Alternatively, if you wanted to, correct it and submit item 1 estimate corrected XX date, it will not create a version history, and you'll have two separate documents in there because they have different names. But otherwise, like I said, it will overwrite the existing document, but keep a history of it if it's of the same name. Okay. So once you've submitted, to a task and gone through and said, okay, I've corrected all these things or submitted all the missing information, let me hit check that I have done it. It will then trigger the reviewer to review it and determine whether that's right or not. And if they have, they will go in and they will approve it and post a notification to the Project Work Center, which will notify you and others that the request submission is complete, or as the way we're handling these is complete or substantially complete. And that's, it's somewhat of a discretionary thing for the asset manager who's reviewing it. If you've got a package that is, perfect in every way, it's complete. You got a package that's pretty much perfect, but maybe it's missing a couple of documents or there's a good explanation for it. And the asset manager says, look, this is mostly done. We just let's just move it on to the next phase and go ahead with our review. We can expect that they'll have what's missing or this information corrected by the time we complete our review. That's at their discretion. And we want to be flexible and supportive, but we also want to make sure we are not reviewing requests that are incomplete and don't have all the information we need to be able to give you an answer one way or the other. So that's really the goal of this process, is to make sure that everybody on the outside world knows exactly what they need to start the process. And once that, and then, our team knows to provide kind of meaningful feedback on what may be missing or what the issues are. So you feel like, if something's missing, you've been given good information on what that is and you know how to correct it. And then once a complete submission is put in, that we have everything we need to really do our analysis and try to get a quick turnaround on the request. Particularly as it relates to major transactions, I'll just throw out there, the initial completion review is really just a review. Has everything been submitted, and is it all in the form it needs to be, or are there big gaps missing, right? Like, if and I'll go back to the RFR form, right? Like if there's basic information about like certain invoices missing, that would not be complete. Or if there is, the certification isn't signed, right? That wouldn't be complete at that point. But once that's done, now our asset manager who's reviewing it, they may have some follow-up questions, and they will notify and provide a task in there if it comes out. They may dig into it and realize, oh, it looked like a complete invoice, but actually this invoice number doesn't match this. That's the kind of detailed analysis that we'll do once we have what looks to be a complete package. We just want to make sure we've got a full package before we start doing that and kind of getting caught in this kind of a cycle of going back and forth before we even have a complete package. Okay, so yeah, like I said, there will be a notification, and if required, this is typically only going to apply to the major transactions. It's at that point that the asset manager will also upload an invoice if an invoice is due for our review of the request. Again, we don't want to do that at the beginning and have you pay something and then find out, you don't even have a complete request and aren't going to submit a complete request and you've already paid something. But so we're holding that off until the initial review of a substantially complete package is submitted. Then the payment needs to be made in order to start the next phase. And you'll see that that'll be uploaded into the work center. And then once the payment is made and you upload kind of the record of the payment, whether it be a wire confirm or, copy the check or whatever it is, or an email from our finance team saying it was received, you mark it as complete, and we'll verify and then get started. I already jumped ahead a little bit on here. During kind of that substantive review process, you may get additional questions, which will generate tasks or posts to the work center, which will then generate emails to the work center users along with deadlines. So there's a variety of different types of outcomes on requests. Some may just be approved, and this is where we start getting into like what type of request it is and what the outputs are. There may be like a form document that we provide as the approval. There may be additional kind of follow-up saying the request has been approved, but we need these things to happen in order to move forward. It may just be denied or rejected outright. Or if it looks like there's, something's arisen where it just can't be approved now, there's things that need to be resolved, it could be put on hold. Right, and you will receive a notification on the approval, either if, a document that's uploaded to the work center or a post through the work center notifying you that it's been approved. Okay, so, and now we're really, this is going to apply more to these major transaction requests, some of the big like modification of deal terms type things. So there's often, we're talking about here the internal DCA business review and approval process. There are often layers of reviews and documentation that happen through legal counsel. So oftentimes the initial review and approval will then kick off to the next phase of, okay, we've got a full package of what the deal is. It's been reviewed and approved or approved with these terms. Now we're engaging counsel and starting kind of the phase of kicking off the closing and getting to the point where the transaction can close. So at that point, you will receive a notification. The DCA assigned lead will kind of think about what parties need to be involved and, if appropriate, schedule kind of a kickoff call or a closing call with those parties. And at that time, it's also important that the requester notify the DCA assigned lead if there are, any kind of closing deadlines or things that need to be focused on at that time. And also we're trying to make it a priority in order for consistency across our teams and tracking and reporting to do all things through Procorum and not via email. That helps us and it helps you because we all have a clear idea of what is where. We don't have to like figure out if something's sitting in somebody's email and didn't make it, they're not sharing it or they're not on the matter. So we're trying to get away from any communication outside of Procorum. However, particularly these major transaction requests, kickoff calls, outside counsel, lots of parties who are not members of the work center, that's where you'll start to see things phase out of dealing solely within the Procorum project work center to some emails and communications and maybe sharing documents. The important part is just that the transaction documents and any requested due diligence from the assigned lead will continue to come through the Procorum Work Center and need to be uploaded into the Procorum Work Center. Right, and so if at any time somebody believes there was an error made or disagrees with the outcome of a request, or something's been terminated and you feel like it should not have been terminated, obviously try to work with the people who are members of the work center team. And if you're not able to resolve that, then we encourage you to send a communication to our multifamily leadership team or the DCA leadership team. Which could be the director of multifamily, one of our deputy directors, or myself as the director of DCA, and Sonia Vini, the deputy director. And just in general, I mean, as we continue to roll out this process in Procorum, if you see things that you feel are could be improved or process changes that you would recommend, maybe you've seen other states do through Procorum. We welcome feedback. Actually, Renee, is there a general kind of submission inbox for stuff like that, or is that?
Yes, I'll drop the link in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, and so if you send stuff like that, it'll get. I mean, it's really the focus for that is Procorum, ProLink, but if it covers that, business process and things like that, they'll make sure to get that to the leadership teams. 1 second, Langela, I'm just about done. So once the request is completed, the asset management lead will transfer the request to the completed request folder, right? So what you'll see is, we'll have these open folders related to specific types of requests. Once they're completed, the asset manager who's in charge will either retitle it as closed or completed. And in some cases, there may be like a completed requests folder as well that they're going to move it into, just to kind of keep the boxes clean. We're still getting used to this, and they look pretty clean right now. But as the years go on, we may find that additional organization is necessary in order to, just keep things moving efficiently. So I just wanted to track back. A lot of this stuff is we're trying to make a process out of something for organizational purposes, but you probably know as well as we do that we have a lot of different loans and funding types and projects with nuances and things that come up, or you may just be looking at the requests and need some guidance, or trying to understand what the process looks like, or just want to share it with the people who will be reviewing it ahead of time. So in those cases, it's definitely appropriate to reach out to the PM or the PA on the project, or DCA management if you're talking about like a major transaction request. To schedule a pre-submission meeting to just kind of say, hey, look, I'm getting ready to submit this request. I could use a little guidance on these things in the instructions or these documents that are part of the submission package, and I want to make sure I'm giving you what you need. So that's appropriate and welcome. And then, if necessary, what we'll do is, if there's any kind of agreements or determinations made at those meetings that, well, look, we'll start the request without, I think I mentioned earlier, that substantially complete package. So if there's an agreement at that point to say, okay, well, you don't have these things, but you'll have them later, you can submit without them. We'll put a post or a note in the work center. So that'll notify the asset manager when it gets set up, and the assigned lead that when they're doing their review to move forward without those. All right. So just to wrap up, I would say most important thing, if people haven't already, jump on the website and find the instructions and information, find the training that was done for Procorum users generally, and getting onto Procorum and getting people assigned onto work centers. And so make sure that you and your team have access, because otherwise, there will be inspections and deadlines and things that go out that you won't have eyes on, and it may impact, if somebody doesn't show up for an inspection, it can impact the schedule or the rating or whatever it is. So keep an eye on the website for forms, instructions, and information. We've been really focusing on trying to put things on the website, send them out to our users list, as well as posting them through Procorum, particularly as people start to get used to using this new system. We just want to make sure we're not missing anybody who maybe just isn't in the system yet. And then we've got some upcoming trainings on the horizon. So reserve for replacements, and we may have dates on these already. I'm not certain, but these are kind of the next big three that are coming down the pipe. We've got reserve for replacement disbursements, and how to submit those and fill out the forms, particularly the ProLink or the Procorum Smart Doc for that. We have an audited financial statements and surplus cash, the paperwork that needs to get submitted with those in order to do the surplus cash calculations and our reviews. So that's coming up hopefully before the end of March. The plan is to get it before the end of March, if not towards the middle of March, so as to align with the auditors who have completed their audits at that point and are typically looking to start completing those work papers. And then compliance. So many of you may be familiar with the annual compliance that DCA does. So these are the compliance certification forms that are signed, and then there's like a spreadsheet that gets filled out, which has all of the units and information related to the tenants to validate compliance. Procorum and ProLink have a different way of doing that, which is highly related to the XML uploads and a lot of the systems that you folks are probably using that help with compliance on your end, and that will streamline the process for us doing our annual compliance reviews. So it won't be you completing a form that we send to you. It'll be a little bit different. So there's going to be trainings on that. And we are expecting that to be a little later in the year, no earlier than June or July, possibly back towards August or September. At least this year. I think we may push it forward as the years progress, but just with all the different changes through Procorum and ProLink, we don't want to roll out new processes all at the same time. So, and then finally, just issues and help. There's a link here, dhcd.prolinksupport@maryland.gov, where you can submit issues or request help. And then just, continue to reach out to your project managers, portfolio administrators, or DCA multifamily management with issues that arise. All right, that is the end of the training. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then open it up to questions. Okay. So I see LaAngela, I'm going to start with you. So reserve for requests going through procurement, correct. Yeah. And that will be, if we have a little time, I think we do. I'll go ahead and pull up. Just give me 1 second. Just want to get to the right folder to make sure I'm not sharing anybody's information on a recorded screen here. All right. So here, yeah, there we go. So I can't promise your work centers look exactly like mine, but I should look like this in any work center that our external parties are using. When you log in, you should see these four. I can zoom in now. So there we go. You should see these four folders. This project onboarding, which generally speaking, that's going to be where your asset manager communicates with the project at the initial onboarding and the kickoff, and kind of getting you set up with asset management on your project, and what the flow of inspections and financial reviews and requirements are going to be going on. So that won't be one that's used a lot kind of throughout the course of the project. Most of what you'll see is going to be in this routine project monitoring. And if there's time, I'll jump back in there just to share for folks who haven't seen it. But so I mentioned before the standard request. So if you're doing a reserve for replacement, you would click in your standard request. You would find this reserve, escrow, and impound. You would go into this reserve for replacement disbursements. And so in this file, I was doing a test. This 2/8/2026 RFR request, that's the folder you will see after you've done your initial upload and the asset manager has gone in, created the folder, and moved all the documents into it. What you would, and so when you do your initial submission, you would just go here and upload files and drag all the files that you need to submit for your RFR submission and if you've got comments or something you need to put in there, and then upload them, and that'll trigger the review process. And then, as I said, that's when, after the asset manager reviews the submission, they'll add it to a folder here. And just as just to kind of follow up on what I was talking about earlier, it would be dated 2/8/26 RFR request. Once it's completed, once fully closed out, it's either been terminated for, information wasn't submitted and we've requested it a few times and somebody hasn't responded, it could get closed out then, or the approval's been provided and uploaded and signed off on, everything's done, it would be, they would title it closed RFR request. So at that point, there's not any more work being done in it. So if you wanted to submit a new RFR request in April or May or whenever it is, you'd go in and you'd just upload them all. And this wouldn't be here, this item 1, upload them all. And then the asset manager would go in and create April 26, 2026 RFR request. That's probably more than you wanted to know, but hopefully that's okay. So the turnaround time, that's all going to depend on, so that there's multiple turnaround times that we're working on, right? So we aim to have that initial review completed within the first week of the submission, to have determined if anything's missing and followed up and said, this is missing X, Y, and Z. We can't start our request until we have it. Once that complete submission is made, that's when the turnaround time, we're looking to try to get 21 days. And I think we currently have a 30-day turnaround time that we use as a benchmark. If we can do it faster, that's our goal. I mean, we want to be efficient and quick, but that time, that time is triggered off of, do we have a complete submission? And then, do you have to log in each day? No, you will get emails from Procorum, or you could log in and check your tasks. Let me answer. As to your specific submission, if it's complete, you'll get a notification once it's determined to be complete. And that's how you'll know that the asset manager is, they're starting their kind of substantive review of the request, making sure that the invoices match the amounts, that everything fits within the policy, and what can be approved, what can't be approved, that kind of thing. And then once it is approved, you'll get a notification. So again, you'll get an email, and it will be in that Procorum Work Center. But I think the email will probably be the way that you would find out about that without having to go in and check. Anybody else have any questions on this?
Joey, Jim French had posted a question. He's
Okay.
asking if there's a glossary for various requests so that they're not submitting things that are tax credit only requirements as opposed to DCA requirements. And I would probably refer him to the matrix that you have.
Yeah. So I'm not sure, and Jim, feel free to follow up if you have, if I'm not answering this correctly, but so tax credit only, it does in some ways fall to DCA anyway. We handle the reviews of those from like an asset management standpoint after year 15. When you're in that initial compliance period, and there, for a deal where there is no loan funding at all, it's just tax credits, and it's some 9% tax credits in years 1 to 15. The tax credit compliance group is not in DCA, and they are not using Procorum or ProLink at this point anyway. They use a different system which name is escaping me right now. But so that's the distinction. But I'm not sure what type of requests or information you might be talking about submitting. HTS. Thank you, Jennifer.
Angela Todd asked a question regarding capital expenditures done through Procorum, and the expenditures are still going, the money will still be distributed via either a Marinat, M&T if it's a bond loan, or if you hold your own reserves, you will be responsible for providing the written approval that will provide you through Procorum to your bank. I hope that answers your question. And we had another question. If we submitted a reserve request in the last week to the email, will it be reviewed, or do we need to request it in the portal?
Yeah, so with the guidance we've given on that, and I think it's still good, is we're still checking emails. People are still looking at their emails. We haven't made a hard, you may not proceed through email, as people are continuing to get used to using Procorum, getting into it. I'm not even sure at this point that all projects have gotten in there yet, and we're working on getting them all in there. But so folks are going to be using Procorum as their primary means of kind of monitoring their projects and checking. So particularly, if they're going to like reserve request inboxes and things like that, the timing on those may be delayed a little bit. This is how our teams are able to kind of manage their time and keep an eye on when it was submitted and when they need to turn around their responses and things like that. So the short answer is no, or yes, it will be reviewed. And if you've already kind of gotten communication from your asset manager on it, then that should be fine. Anybody else? I saw somebody wrote something that I don't see in the comments, but something about financials. I don't know if there's a different. Well, we're reaching the end of the hour. I can stay on for a little bit longer if people still have questions, but if not, I hope this was helpful. And like I said, this will be recorded and will be saved to the website that I showed you earlier. And so, feel free to watch it again, send it to anybody on your teams who needs information on this, as well as the instructions that are on the website should pretty much mirror this. So this training was based off of those instructions. So those will be helpful as well. And I appreciate everything. This is a big learning curve for all of us. I know it's going to be a big learning curve for all of you. And so we will be try to have grace and flexibility, and ask that you do the same with us as we, get used to using this new system and hopefully becoming a lot more efficient and organized around the timing and responding to requests and things like that. So thank you all very much.